We're out here at Ackerman Asphalt talking with Ryan Ackerman. Ryan, you gave the Souris River Joint Board kind of an exciting update. You were met with the Corps this week, and they were telling you about a little bit about some ecosystem restoration. Would you like to explain what you've learned and what that means for the area?
Sure. So, as a part of the Corps of Engineers feasibility study process, we've identified some concerns with the existing federal project related to the former river meanders that we all know locally as the dead loops. And the Corps, through some initial study, they've come to at least recognize that these are problematic, that they are a product of the original flood control project, and that there are likely some avenues that we can pursue using federal dollars to help to fix part of that problem. So yeah, it's pretty exciting.
So that might mean at some point down the road, we're probably not real sure when, timing on all these sort of things, but the dead loops might be known by another name at some point in our future.
At some point in our future. I mean, the restoration of many of them is quite costly, so we still have to cost justify any improvements that we make. There isn't necessarily a blank check that's out there to do this, but based on what we know today, we know that at least there's a desire to continue studying this as a part of the feasibility study with the Corps, and the biologists and the environmental folks with the Corps are interested in pursuing this further. So I guess we do view that as a positive step.
Okay, great news there. On more of the immediate front. We're approaching the spring melt. We've got what feels like a lot of the snow off the ground here in the last couple of weeks with some warmer weather. But what are you hearing in terms of conditions out there, and what are the expectations for the next couple months as far as you know?
Well, so in the last few weeks, the flow projections for Minot, for instance, have dropped. They were originally expecting about 4,800 CFS to pass through town at the peak. Right now, they're thinking about 3,500 CFS passing through town at the peak. So I think that obviously bodes well for Minot and the other areas in the basin. There are a couple of things of note, though, that are kind of interesting about this year. We are going to see some fairly significant flows passing the Canadian border and coming into North Dakota from Saskatchewan, but it's important to note that these flows are actually being generated from snow that is below the Canadian reservoirs. So these aren't related to any releases out of Rafferty or Alameda. The peaks that we are going to see are going to be unregulated, coming basically from the areas that are between and below the Canadian reservoirs. So, basically there's no control over that water that's going to come into North Dakota. Additionally, we do have some concerns for the downstream reaches of the Mouse River in North Dakota. The Deep River in particular has a significant amount of snowpack. The Deep extends from Renville County into a piece of Ward County and then ultimately discharges into McHenry County. But that is it's packed with snow. There's still a lot of snow water equivalent that's out there within that and some other the downstream tributaries. So we do have some concerns for the most downstream portions of the basin, basically Towner to West Hope. In those particular areas that we expect to see some fairly significant flows. I think the last forecast called for roughly 9,000 CFS at West Hope. So that's a fairly significant event for the downstream reach.
Okay. Over the last couple of months, you guys here at Ackerman Asphalt have been developing some tools to assist you in generating some of these forecasts and basically getting a handle on all the data. Do you want to tell folks a little bit about what you've been doing and what's available to them?
Sure. So on mouseriverplan.com, there's a tab that is labeled Current Conditions. And if you access that tab, basically what we have on there is a side-by-side comparison of snow water equivalent. The left-hand side is a period of time that we selected that we think people can relate to, and that's March of 2011. So it was late March, I think the 27th is the date that corresponds to the data. That's on the left-hand side, and then on the right-hand side, that corresponds to recent conditions, so basically the data of the day that's available. And really by analyzing that, people can get a pretty good feel for how conditions compare back to that time in 2011, to a more relatable time. So I think it gives people a better feel for at least one of the risk drivers with regard to flooding. I mean, there are several risk drivers, soil moisture conditions, elevations of the water that's in the reservoirs, frost depth, spring rains, rate of the melt, et cetera. I mean, there are a lot of different risk drivers for flooding, but this at least gives people a better feel for one of those risk drivers. So we publish that information that's out there. We're working on some other ones as well to try and republish and repackage some of the data that the National Weather Service publishes as well, just to put it in a form that's a little bit easier for people to understand. And we're working on that, and that'll be a refinement here as we continue toward the spring thaw.
Okay, thanks for your time. Really appreciate it, and we'll look forward to seeing those new tools that you guys are developing at some point here in the future.
All right, great.